The plenary session this afternoon is about the ground up, restoring Africa's landscapes from the ground up. To begin that discussion this afternoon, I'd like to call on Constance Okelet. Madam Constance Okelet, are you here with us this afternoon? Can we please give her a big round of applause? Thank you for being here, Constance Okelet. Constance is the chairperson of Osukuru United Women's Network OWN, and she's talking about climate-wise movement from women's perspectives. Hello, Constance. How are you? Thank you for being with us this afternoon. Please give us your presentation.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am by the name Constance Okelet. I come from Uganda. I come from eastern part of Uganda, in Toro, for the Ugandans who are here, and near the border of Kenya and Uganda. I come from a very rich sub-county called Osukuru United Women's, Osukuru sub-county. And that's the name of my organization. It's a big organization holding so many women and men, youth. It's a movement of everybody. In my language, or in Uganda, there is a saying that when you are walking and you knock a stone, then you jump up, then you realize that there is a problem, and that is climate change. In 2007, that's when we knocked the stone. That is it. Because when you are walking on the smooth ground, there's nothing that you will face bad, everything will be good. But in 2007, there was floods that covered almost the whole country. We didn't know what climate change was, but that was our first time to see climate change, because there was water everywhere, people losing homes, people losing lives, animals, houses, so many things were lost. At the end of the day, then our eyes were opened. What about it? What can we do to change this? And what is it? And until Oxfam came and said, do you know what is happening? They said, no, we don't know. It's climate change. Fine. We said, come up with a movement. We started. We formed the network because our individual activities are agriculture. And we depend on agriculture to live. All our basic needs is on agriculture. And as somebody said, the pearl of Africa, there's everything, fertile land, everything you get there. Now the fertile land is not there now. And what do we do to the fertile land? We need to bring back the fertility of the land. We need to show people that things can be changed. And why did we form this group? Because the women are change agents. They can change things, though the men behind thought that the women cannot do things. We have 3 thematic areas because we are there for agriculture, we are there for health, we are there for education. We don't want our children not to go to school. We don't want our lives to go off. But with climate change, there's nothing good for our lives. One, if I tell you something, we used to have 2 seasons in a year. First season in January, Feb, March. We harvest in June, July. But now it's not there. The season is not there. You gamble with agriculture, you do anything. It is raining, you plant, it is raining. There's the long-term drought. 5, 6. It used not to be there. Look at the floods. It comes, it covers the whole place. Children don't go to school. There's a lot of sickness. People die. School dropouts are many. A child carrying a child. Things don't work according to the people's will. So the movement that we have formed, it's now changing the face of what? Of the worst it is going back to this. And the only thing that we need is networking. We need people to come together, help these community members to push, because they are there, they are already doing something, manage the school fees. So if they are helped, they can do something. I'm very glad that Greenbelt movement is here. Greenbelt movement heard about this organization, that there's a movement in Uganda, and they said, right, can you bring them here? The movement took these women to Nairobi. They were given full knowledge, which they are using it up to now. Thank you very much, Greenbelt movement. And we started this not knowing, but we were looking at the Uganda government. What is the government doing with all this? Can you give us seeds? We don't want the fish, we want the net. Can you please give us the net? So the Uganda government also is helping us with the seeds, quick maturing, plows and ox plows, because this one organization is a voice for the voiceless. I'm here, I'm talking on behalf of my organization, because you cannot bring everybody here. But as you see me, you see everybody down there. So Uganda, Osukuru has a great opportunity, and they say thank you very much for taking their person to this forum. And we say that let it continue. It shouldn't stop here, because having this forum, it's now like people are now coming up to see, to work on this issue, and now we hope for the best. The change will take place when we get it together. That's when the change will come, because in the past, only the women in the community. People don't realize that the community is doing something. They are there, they forget about the community, they are doing their own things, and yet with the community and the knowledge that they have, and every participation that they do, it can make things to change. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
GLF.
Thank you, Constance. Thank you for representing your community and being the voice for the voiceless women that come from your town. We are very grateful that you're representing them here today. Thank you so very much. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, I think that most of you have been here from very early this morning, haven't you? Most of you came around 7:45, 8 o'clock. Can I please ask you all to be upstanding for me so we can all have a big stretch? Can we try that? Just to loosen up our muscles and get ourselves ready for the very last lap of this session before we go on a lunch. I can see people actually needed to stretch. Look at you. Wow. Thank God I asked you to stand up so you can stretch. Do you feel better? Pardon? No, if I don't hear a yes, I'm not going to stop talking. Do you feel better? Finally, finalement, tout le monde s'est réveillé maintenant. Okay, so now we can all be seated. I know that it sounds, like I said earlier on, one of those sessions where everybody talks and there is no action, but I think that this is one of the forums where action takes effect. It's not just a high-level discussion behind closed doors. It's about participating contestants and speakers, people who have made change from the grassroots up. Our next speaker is from Ghana, And his name is Nana Yao Osei Dakwa, who is the conveyor and founder of the Green Republic. Please welcome Nana Yao to give us his presentation.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed, it's indeed a great honor to be here with us all to talk about the challenging moments of our importance. But for us at the Green Republic Project, we have defined climate change as a battle between humanity and nature. That is how simple we have made it. Because most often than not, we restrict these discussions to jargons and academia, and then we leave out a large chunk of our people. And in building movements, we cannot build movements with only intellectuals or only the academia. And so what we are saying is this, that climate change is a form of war that we have to fight as humans. But this war has come about because of our irresponsible attitudes, our actions and inactions. And for that matter, it is time for us to start a reconciliation process between humanity and nature. The sad aspect of it is this, that nature is there for our good, and yet we have over the centuries acted violently towards nature, and nature says, I ain't going to take it no more. Nature is rebelling against us, and we are all paying the consequences of it. In Ghana, it hardly rains in October, but we've had rains non-stop. Day after day, it rains sometimes a week in a row in October. And when people needed the rains to farm, to do their agricultural stuff, no rains. And so nature is telling us something, that folks, it's about time you reconcile with me so we live peacefully together. And so that's what the Green Republic is all about. To do this, we are mobilizing a mass movement of young people. And again, as the other speaker said, we cannot win this war without the youth. Indeed, the youth must be in the forefront of this battle. And even though battles are fought to be won or lost, we humans cannot afford to lose this particular battle. Because if we lose this battle, it's going to lead to the extinction of the human race. And so we have no choice. We can only win this war. To do this, on 25th of May last year, we decided that we were going to gather this mass mobilization of young Ghanaians to begin this reconciliation process, focusing on tree planting, because we believe that trees have an essential role to play in the climate fight as a natural remedy. And so we were in Tamale, in the northern part of Ghana, where we thought that the need for us to plant trees there is greater because of its closeness to the Sahel regions. And on the 1st of July, we started that reconciliation process. We started that reconciliation process by engaging young people from secondary schools and colleges in Tamale to plant 3,500 trees in a village called Young Dakwemyeli. This was action-focused. It had nothing to do with talk. We had to go straight into action to ensure that what we do today will reflect the tomorrow we want to see. That same year, 2 weeks from the 1st of July, we again, in the Mion district of the northern region, in a community called Sang, planted 4,500 trees. And this was by young people. We think that this war is for every one of us. Black, white, green, blue, Muslim, Christian, traditionalist, whoever you are, you need to enlist in this war. as a climate soldier. And so we are offering a platform for us to take action and reduce the talk. As part of our strategy, we have not left everybody out. In communities that we go first to the traditional authorities as custodians of the land and people who appreciate the customs and traditions of our communities. As custodians of land, we cannot win the climate fight without engaging our traditional authorities, because they have the land. In Ghana, they are the ones who have the land and not government. And so we need to engage them, and we engage them, and we have lands released to us for us to do this. We have a target of planting 20 million trees in the next 10 years. That is what we believe we can contribute to the climate fight. But to make it a bigger movement, we have been knocking on the doors of government for the past 2 months, calling for a national tree planting day, because we cannot succeed with piecemeal approaches. We have to be radical in the way we address this thing. We have to be very creative in the way we go about it. I see representatives of the great king of Ashanti, Otumfuo Osei Tutu II, represented here, the Queen Mother of Uganda and other Queen Mothers from Ghana. I know that the great king has a mission of planting about 100 million trees. I know that the king of Achim Ebuakwa, Osajifo Amweti of Ipenin, also wants to plant about 20 million trees. The Green Republic Project wants to plant 20 million trees in the next 10 years. I've spoken to some mayors who also want to plant 100,000 trees in the cities, around the country. What we are saying at the Green Republic Project is this: we have to be creative, else this fight is getting nowhere. And so we're saying, and humbly calling on the leadership of African countries, that we start observing national tree planting days in our respective countries. In Ghana, we are close to 30 million people. If we have a day, it should not be a holiday. The first Saturday, for instance, in July every year is the rainy season in Ghana. If from the president to the ordinary Ghanaian, we move out and say that this is our common fight, we are going out on this day, each Ghanaian should plant a tree. If we go out there from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. that day, and even only 2 million Ghanaians come out and each plants 3 trees, just 3 trees, how many trees would we have planted in a single day? Not even a day, in about 4 hours. And we keep knocking on the doors of the state, wanting this to be done. And I would like to call on all leaders here that the climate fight is not one that can be won with lip service. It is about time we got real. It's about the time the church, for instance, gets involved. We've had the privilege of working with the Church of Pentecost, for instance, in Tema, where I had the opportunity to preach. I'm not a preacher man, but that day I had the privilege of speaking to the church. And I told them, I am a Christian too. My Bible tells me that we need to take dominion over the earth and replenish the earth and subdue it. And yet what we have done is to watch on for the beautiful things that God created destroyed. And we are active members in that destruction. And so what is the church doing about holding that sacred promise that we claim to have from our Maker? What is our role? Are we only armchair Christians warming the pews in our churches? The time has come for all of us to rise up and take common action. What does it take to plant a tree, for instance? We are focusing on trees. What does it take to plant a tree? And that's why we need this national tree planting days in Africa. And I hope that we'll all take it along and make our respective countries and continents and the world at large green again. I'll end by saying that we can only win the climate war by reconciling humanity with nature through restoration.
Yes.
Before I go, to every movement, there should be a theme song. And I agree with a young lady, DJ Swish, for saying that without a theme song, it's difficult to sometimes overcome challenges. And so, as a nonviolent activist and a certified trainer in nonviolence, I see this as a form of war that we are supposed to win by reconciling. And so I want us to sing the We Shall Overcome song to motivate us as humans to say that we shall overcome. I'll crave your indulgence to be up, and I'll be the choir master here.
Can I be your chorus?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. Can we please be upstanding to give him
know the
support
song,
to us?
I mean, we all
This song,
sing.
please.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday. Thank you all. God bless you.
Nanaya, what a powerful and hair-raising speech you made this afternoon. I think that most of us were moved by his passionate speech and his movement of creating change from the grassroots and restoring nature from what we have done to it. I mean, I could not have given such a powerful speech, so but let's please give him another big round of applause. I think he deserves it. Flawless, and this is the real action leader that we need in Ghana. We need more of you, Nana Yao, so thank you very much for taking the lead, and I think we've been inspired by your speech. At this point in time, I'd like to call on Mr. John Coleman, who is the Managing Director of Global Landscapes Forum, to give us a speech about his initiative to build communities and the movements that we're trying to change and create. Thank you so very much for receiving him. Can we please give him another big round of applause?
Wow. Whenever I come to a GLF, I feel such humility at the leaders we have with us, Your Royal Highness, the young people, DJ Switch, the ideas we heard from Kenya. It's amazing. So what we want to do now is take GLFX to a next level. Why? There's power in numbers. GLF is building a global movement that connects and puts communities first. We have the knowledge, we have the ideas. It's time to scale the great projects like we saw today that we're seeing all over the world. We need to scale them up now. We want to empower local communities to take action, create dedicated communities of practice. How and what? We will support these communities with new connections, technology and knowledge to connect, share, learn, act, to accelerate action, to develop landscapes that are the mission of GLF, productive, prosperous, equitable, and resilient. The benefits of joining these communities will be more relevant events near you, the support of the GLF partnership, and we're very powerful, many of the leading development institutions in the world. We will support and we will bring in scientists and we will help raise funds. We invite you to come to the GLFX booth outside to talk to the team and see how GLF can support your community. This is a great time. There's great ideas. I think the great ideas are not in Silicon Valley anymore. I think they're here. I think they're in Kenya. I think they're in Peru. And I think they're on the ground in local communities. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great year to change the world. It's a great day. Let's start now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. All of you are inspired and motivated, and you don't feel like you're just spectators anymore, because after listening to all of our speakers and obviously hearing such passionate renditions of what they feel and how they're making change, you also are inspired to make a change and not just be spectators anymore. At this point in time, I'd like to call on our next speaker, Portia Edu-Mensah, who is the National Coordinator of 350.org. Could we please give her another big round of applause?
Hello, everyone. My name is Mrs. Portia Edu-Mensah. I was raised in Esium, a suburb of the eastern region of Ghana. Agriculture produced from Esium feeds every single Ghanaian, and it's also a place where my love for grassroots volunteerism ignited. How many of you here are from Ghana? Please, can I see by hand? Wow, awesome. So you know and may share my pride for Ghana, a once colonized state, now a sovereign nation. Production and consumption of raw materials such as cocoa, bauxite, gold, and many more are the heart of our economy. Yet resources are scarce, whilst our propensity to reproduce seems uncontrollable. How can we assure our people living in this country to have equal access to these resources, which is our natural rights? We do have reforms and legislations indeed to control the impact of our increasing consumption of developing population, but our taste for economic benefits overshadows our environmental well-being. Unregulated fishing practices leads to water pollution. Unregulated mining or sand winning practice leads to land and water pollution as well. And the other practices destroy our landscape. We Ghanaians cannot sit idle and do nothing to mitigate the negative impact on our environment. I cannot sit idle. Since 2008, I had the pleasure to live my dream and passion for a transformational change in Ghana. I first started with Dream Hunt, a crowd highly skilled people worked with, and we came up to work around the sustainable development goals, zero hunger, quality education, clean water and sanitation, decent work and economic growth and climate change, and some other global goals. I am also the National Coordinator for 350 Ghana Reducing Our Carbon since 2015. I affiliate with 350.org, WaterAid, a Bibiman Foundation, Pevita Foundation, Young African Leaders Initiative, and Friends of the Earth, and many more. In my work for 350 Ghana Reducing Our Carbon, I fight for climate justice. We sensitize people about climate change problems and advocate for renewable energy technologies in Ghana and beyond. We are the youth. We care for our environment. We reviewed the Ghana Manifesto on Renewable Energy and the Renewable Energy Act 832, which has been lying down since 2011, and sent our recommendations to the Energy Minister. Since late 2013, we successfully embarked on an anti-coal or coal kills campaign to halt the establishment of the coal-fired plant in Ekumfi, Ghana. We have proposed an alternative dubbed renewable energy for communities to policymakers through our grassroots community mobilization. We have the power to push our politicians and political leaders to act from bottom up. And we have only started. 350 Ghana Reducing Our Carbon through our actions has got a lot of schools to commit to 100% renewable energy. In my work, I also search for immediate sustainable solutions to impact climate change on our ecosystem. The renewable energy aspect is critical. You may all agree with me that tree cutting has left enormous effect on our landscape. Whilst tree cutting is really sparing, we make us more vulnerable to climate change. We Ghanaians think climate change is far from us, but it is not. Our existence and extensive cutting of trees is really sparing and making us more vulnerable to climate change. If we do not act now, food insecurity, soil degradation will become the rhythm of our vulnerable earth. In addressing this issue, my work with Dream Hands is supporting Planting for Food and Jobs initiative by government, by equipping the students in the eastern region of Ghana with farming capacities. We've started by helping both boys and girls become gender sensitive and build a school garden project. With them, we supply the school canteen. With Dream Hands School Gardening Initiative, we are able to help the school to relate what they learn in school with what they do in their own family lands. We also support students' benefits in acquiring economic skills to work with economical valuable trees and crops and are sold to the benefit of the school. To us, Dream Hands, agriculture in our view is not just a hobby, but a business. Esiakwa Presbyterian School is one of the places where we work with our Dream Hands School Gardening Initiative. It has a 1-acre farm. We again established an environmental school club with students planting a tree on their birthdays. How many of you here have planted a tree on your birthday before? So this is an initiative we are encouraging a lot of us to be part of. Let me be honest, like most social activists, I really struggle to find the right balance between stability and change. We are in the constant race of innovation, seeking to transform our society to reduce the impact of climate change by fighting the depleting ozone layer. But I often feel the idea of stability has somewhere been lost in this fight. In such moments, I like to remind myself of who I am, what I stand for as a Ghanaian woman. I feel our national anthem has a lot to offer for us to keep on the fight and the rights for our nature. The anthem says, "God bless our homeland Ghana and make our nation great and strong, bold to defend forever the cause of freedom and of rights. Fill our hearts with true humility, make us cherish fearless and honesty. Help us to resist oppressors' rule with all our hearts and with all our might forevermore." I'm very proud of my beautiful country and the nature it harnesses. I am proud of my fellow youth champions and our shared passion for the environment. I invite you to rise and safeguard Ghana and Mother Earth from destruction. Will you join me? If you join me, can I see by hand? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Portia Edu-Mensah, for being another foot soldier and change maker for our nation, Ghana. If any of you feel inspired and feel motivated to join any of these speakers' movements that they've created, please feel free to speak to them after the session that we're about to complete at some point this afternoon. Please, as I mentioned earlier on, do not just be spectators. Please be contributors to making a change for our nation and for the continent and the world at large. I'd like to, at this point, call on Basiru Isa, who is from IPMG, to give us his presentation. Can we please give him a big round of applause?
Bonjour à tout le monde. I don't know how many francophones are in the hall. If there are many, I would like to speak in French because that is my basic language. Okay, since you are not much, I will speak in English. Thank you very much for the organizers for inviting me in this wonderful forum in which I took part, I think 2 years ago in Nairobi, and now this is the second time. I will be talking about self-driving initiative on landscape restoration by indigenous people in Africa. So as she said, I come from the Indigenous People Major Group for Sustainable Development Goals, which is a global platform of indigenous people trying to, work on the different aspects of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals or the 2030 Agenda. So I am in Africa as the Technical Support Secretariat. So I will be giving you some short issues on what we have been encouraging on the ground, and also maybe end up by giving you what we think of how success do we think landscape can be, if we, what should be done and who should do it. So I will have, voila. The first thing here, in fighting against deforestation and climate change, indigenous people who were at the first time, mostly especially the headsmen, who were living from one area to the other, are trying to settle down. As you may see here in the first picture, they are trying to settle down. By so doing, they will come together and maybe they might attract some social amenities to come to their communities. And also it will reduce the risk of movement, not just destroying the nature, but also will reduce the risk of their health. Secondly is by, moving from their traditional economics, because indigenous people, either if they are, we know them, either they are hunters, gatherers, they are cattle rearers, the pastoralism and all the likes. But now, with the advance of the climate change, as one person was saying here, Nana, I think, that, for example, you have limited rainfall, or you have rainfalls in periods that you don't expect. So they are embarking on agriculture. And I think they are doing friendly agriculture that also favors climate or land restoration. So these are good practices that indigenous people are doing. They are not supported for now, but these are their private initiatives that also they have observed, and they are seeing that these may be their own contribution to restoring land and also fighting against climate change. Next slide, please. Okay. I think Nana was talking about that is less talk and action. And I think we can do actions by ourselves. Those of us here who comes together into international conferences and workshops, what do we do apart from talking? When we leave the country, what do we leave the country with? Somebody was talking this morning about Anne Wangari, Professor Anne Wangari. So this is the forest of Professor Anne Wangari. For those of you who are from Kenya, maybe you might recognize the Minister of Forestry and Environment. So in July, we had a workshop, a regional dialogue of indigenous people and climate change. We invited the minister to come and open the workshop. But the minister decided, he came in the morning, earlier than any other person, and he said that, okay, for me, I will not open it here. Each of you present in this workshop, we are more than 250 of us. Each of you will plant 3 trees in the morning before leaving Kenya. And he will do the opening speech of the workshop in the farm. So this is in one of the forests of, just beside the house of late Professor Anne Wangari. So imagine that all of us seated here, maybe about 1,000 of us or less than who are participating in the Global Land Forum, we planted just 2 trees in Ghana before leaving. I think that would have been action speaking louder than words. And this is me at the beginning there. Today, I know that I have a tree in Kenya. I have 3 trees in Kenya that I have also contributing in restoring forest in Kenya. So I would like to recommend to GLF that anytime you are organizing a conference or a workshop in any country, take the planting of trees as one of the actions that, okay, if we come here, what are we going to leave the country with? Because most of us here, we represent our communities, but our communities don't know where we are going to. They don't know when we go, what we talk. But imagine that we go back to one of the communities and plant trees. They will know that, okay, this is where my brother is always going to represent us. This is what they have brought and left us with. So I think by so doing, we will do actions, because I think we like the activists or the so-called leaders, if we go to the field and do actions, our activities will be more, our communities will believe more in our activities. And lastly, last slide. Okay, maybe before it comes, and today, indigenous people, especially the forest dependent and the pastoralists, they are fighting against two things. Overgrazing. Because at first, even though they are forced to sedentarize, but they are fighting against overgrazing. And also, they are fighting against transhumance. Because today, I think cattle as first was just for prestige, just for beauty, but today indigenous people, especially the pastoralists, are engaging in more economic pastoralism than the traditional pastoralism. And I will end by saying this. It will be very difficult for us to achieve landscape restoration if we don't ensure land rights. This morning somebody was saying that 2.5 billion people are managing land or are living on land or working on land that they don't own. So I think one of the aspects that we need to work on is land rights. The access to land right, I think we must take it very serious. The last thing is we cannot achieve the fight against climate change or landscape restoration without sustainable livelihoods. You cannot talk to people to stop doing what is feeding them if you don't give them an alternative. So I think it is important that we work closely with other organizations that are working on livelihoods. So if we want to fight against climate change or sustainable landscape restoration, please let's develop sustainable livelihoods strategies. Thank you.
Speaker for this session, and then we'll proceed to a lunch break. Thank you so much for your patience.
Africa women, are we together? Yes. Are we together? Can I hear a shout from the room? American women, are we together? Can I hear a shout from the room? I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Yes.
Thank you. Distinguished guests, ladies, gentlemen, organizers of the Global Landscapes Forum. My names are Rosemary Atieno Onyango. I come from the lake shores of Kenya, the shores of Lake Victoria. As you have been told, I'm the in-country lead for Kenya Women Climate Centers International. I am also the founder of our community mobilization for positive empowerment, an organization in Kenya. I want to take you down memory lane. Growing up as a young girl in the cities of Nairobi, with the skyscrapers, electricity is not an issue, water is flowing from the taps, food is in plenty, hardship is not a vocabulary in our home. As I continue growing down memory lane, I take up on my professional job as a social worker. Little do I know that I'm starting the journey to learn what it means to be an African child, what it means to be an African woman. As I go down memory lane, I start my work, and I am down in the village from the skyscrapers of the city. I have to live with the women. I have to dine with the women. I have to enter the shoes of the young girls. The women are walking long distances to look for water. The women are walking long distances to look for firewood. The women are looking for vegetables to feed their families. The women are the burden bearers. The women are carrying the burden of taking care of the family. As I continue walking down memory lane, I learn a lot of challenges that the women and girls are facing. The women have to go to the river to look for water, ensure their children are educated, and there is food on the table. This has been an easy situation because the climate has been good. The vegetables are in plenty, the forests are a natural occurrence, and the firewood is a natural drop from the trees. You do not need to cut the trees. But with time, things are changing. The big dragon walks in the name of climate change. The women ask, what is climate change? Does the grassroots woman understand climate change? No, they don't. All they understand is they have to bring food on the table. And the question is, why are things changing? Why are we having a lot of trouble having food on the table? The drought is here, the crops are drying. The floods are here. We are struggling so hard to make ends meet. It is my duty and my responsibility to ensure that the women understand the dragon climate change. I have to demystify climate change. I have to tell them what it is all about. It is about the rains delaying, not coming in time. We have no rains to plant our crops. When the rains come, they are too much, they wash away our crops, and we have nothing to feed our children. We have to run to the hospitals to treat our children. It is all in the name of climate change. So they ask, why? Why? It is my duty to demystify climate change. My grandmother in the village, my mother in the village, my sister in the village, my community at large want to understand what they can do to demystify climate change. I have to explain, and explain in simple terms. As I explain my simple terms, I start to create the voices that we need to hear. And these are the women's voices. Women are key. They are key in restoring our landscapes. The family is the smallest unit. If we start an uprising from the family level, we are going to combat climate change. I beseech each and everyone seated in this room, do not forget the woman. The woman is the burden carrier of climate change. It is in this realization that Rosemary, Constance Okolet seated in this room, Osukuru women, and other women in East and Central Africa have launched a new initiative, an initiative called the Women's Climate Centers International. We have come together as women in different specialties, women in water, sanitation, and hygiene, women in health, women in education, women in food security, to try and rally our voices from the right grassroots place where all of us have emerged from, the family unit, to be able to create a move, be able to create the change that we need in restoring Mother Earth. At Women Climate Centers, we are envisaging a one-stop center where any local woman can walk in, get a simple technology that they could use to avert climate change. We will train on making of trees. Already we are growing trees and encouraging each woman to have trees planted within their compounds. We are Planning, we are already training our young children. As the previous speakers have mentioned, we cannot have this movement without the young being involved. They are a force that we must reckon with. We are training them to plant trees. We are training our women to use energy-saving devices so that the big crunch on looking for firewood is going to come to an end by having an alternative solution to having trees cut down for firewood. We train on how to make fireless cookers because, as the previous speaker has spoken, if we do not give alternative livelihoods, we may be doing zero work. We must give people an alternative in order for them to get to the next alternative that we are giving. We are saying, can we do climate smart farming so that our women are able to have vegetables close to their homes as we engage them in bigger programs in restoring our landscapes? We are saying that, as Wangari Maathai said, that she is conscious of the fact that she cannot do it alone. It requires teamwork. Can we all rise as women and join as a team to combat the effects of climate change? I am calling upon all of us in this room, black, white, green, call it African, European. Can we all join hands and act now? Because tomorrow may be too late. Can we join hands and act now? Can we?
Yes,
Let me
we
see
can.
by a show of hands. Together, we can. Together, we can do it. And I will end this by singing a small song. It's very simple. As I say, you just respond after me. Africa women, are we together? And you say, we are one. When I say American women, you say, we are one. So the women in the house, remember, we are all women. We are mothers. We are daughters. And we are the carriers of every burden in the family. We need to rise up. So women in the house, can you just rise up and we sing this slogan after me? Kenyan women, are we together? We are one. Eh, eh. We are together. We are one. American women, are we together? Ugandan women, are we together?
We are one.
Eh, we are together, we are one. Ghana women, are we together?
We are one. We are one.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Constance and Rosemary. Thank you for your passionate speech. If none of these speakers moved you today, I really do not know who else. And as I was saying earlier on, please let us not be spectators any longer. I think that the Global Landscapes Forum have done an amazing job to bring us all these speakers who have brought solutions, who have brought awareness to the fore about what's really happening on the ground and how we need to make change and no longer be spectators as we are today. If you feel encouraged and motivated and inspired to be a participant, please do not hesitate to contact the Global Landscape Forum Pavilion at the forefront of the foyer in the auditorium. Now I'd like to present my very last speaker for this afternoon before we actually go on our lunch break. And this gentleman seems to have some very interesting things that he'd like to demonstrate and also illustrate to us. Our very last speaker for this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, please give him a very resounding applause as he's our very last speaker for the day, for this part of the day. Please help me welcome Dave Ojay, founder of NAM Festival.
ladies and others, for a moment I would like you to close your eyes. But before you do, I want to give you a note. Think about a pitch when you close your eyes. A football pitch, massive carpeted football pitch that happens to be a lake. Ladies and gentlemen, today Lake Victoria is suffering from hyacinth, pollution, and human activities. A lake that was hosting about 380 types of fish back in the 1970s and the 1960s, today hosts about only 27 or about 30 fish types. This is a resource that is a livelihood to over 40 million people who live along the lake basin in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. The fish catch is dwindling. Now, my journey to here started about 10 years ago when I traveled to my village in Siaya County, sitting on the lake side of Lake Victoria. It was an emotional visit. I found the lake in a pathetic state. It was covered by hyacinth. Fishermen were losing their jobs. Illegal fish techniques was the order of the day. Women dotted the streets of Siaya County all the way to Kisumu County on the lakeside cities of Kisumu, selling immature fish. If it were not for the resources of Lake Victoria, my grandmother would not have managed to educate her children. Lake Victoria is a vital ecosystem to the flora and fauna around East Africa. For me, I see a lot of things happening to this lake. Now, according to the United Nations World Secretary General, that he says water, security, and peace are inextricably linked. That if we do not protect our natural resources, we would be ushering a generation of conflicts that we will rise, conflicts that we will spiral. We are probably talking about the next world war that will be fought with sticks and machetes and not heavy artillery like we know. Livelihoods have been lost. And my story began, like I said, when I traveled to the lake. And as an artist, powerful questions went through my head. And I asked myself, what could I do? I'm just an artist, a cultural operator who uses music, art, poetry, film, theater, you name it, just to convey my emotions, to express myself. So what could I do with my talent? Powerful questions went through pondering my mind. And what came to my mind was the Nam Festival. Nam is a Swahili word that means yes in Swahili, spoken around Lake Victoria. And it means lake in my native Luo language. We acknowledge that it is time to rescue Lake Victoria. It is time to treat it with respect. I say this because I would like to use art to break down the complexity in environmental conservation work. My people in my village do not understand what climate change means. It is my duty to use my talent to break down that jargon and make them just understand what climate change is. And through music, photography, film, we are able to put together powerful content that our people can translate and actually begin to rise up and act differently because they understand what climate change means. Climate change, my dear friends, is a boring topic, yet it is a serious conversation. So how do we bring the seriousness of this conversation into the topic without losing people's interest? What we do at NAM Festival is to combine art and environmental action so that we can give birth to reborn ideas of restoration, regeneration, and rebuilding. We work with communities to turn hyacinth threat into opportunities. We weave baskets out of a threat that is killing and choking our lake. Today, I think perhaps it is time that we decolonize Lake Victoria. The Baganda people call it the Nalubale, an African goddess. But I don't know why it was baptized, and perhaps it is time that we actually rise up and give it its identity, ownership, so that the people can rise up, celebrate it, and protect it. Because the restoration of Lake Victoria, to me, is a pathway to our African unity. A lake that combines over 11 basin countries, springing out from Ginger at Lake Victoria and pouring life through River Nile in Egypt. This is surely our unity symbol. We are trying to do something. What about you? This is a possible dream where we can rise up and see a clean, swimmable, fishable Lake Victoria for generations to come. Thank you. But before I go, I would like to leave a short clip for you to watch.
Don't get an opportunity to clean the places. That's the biggest crime I have.
NAM Festival is a creative, social, and environmental activism organization that uses art as an advocacy tool to push for a mindset shift and action. NAM is a Swahili word that means yes. In Luo language, spoken around Lake Victoria, it means a large water body. Recently, we launched the My Lake, My Future global solidarity campaign featuring 3 endangered lakes in the world. We began with the Save Lake Velayani drive in Trivandrum, Kerala's state capital in India. Over 200 volunteers from schools, colleges, and the public launched a mega cleanup drive on one of their greatest freshwater lake that will happen every Saturday from October 2018 until the lake is restored.
Kantari is an organization that's always advocated for a clean and safe environment. And for the last 2 years, Kantari is working to clean this lake with getting the help of people all across Trivandrum. Dave, the founder of NAM Festival, is a participant of Kantari. I've heard a lot about him having worked for Lake Victoria. And when he found that Kantari is in the banks of Velayani Lake, he found similar threats what is facing for Lake Victoria in Velayani also. He wanted to mobilize people to create an awareness of owning the lake and cleaning the lake.
We need to keep having this conversation and take the lake protection narrative to the global stage. You too can join the campaign Justice for Lake Victoria, Justice for Lake Titicaca, Save Lake Velayani, and this is My Lake, My Future.
Ladies and gentlemen, rise up with me, and together we say, my lake, my future. My lake, my future. My lake, my future. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Dave. Thank you so very much, all of you speakers from this morning and this afternoon's session. Again, I'd like to say a very big thank you on behalf of the Global Landscapes Forum here in Accra, Ghana, at the International Conference Center. It's been such a pleasure to have you all here this morning and into this afternoon. I know most of you are very, very, very tired, and most of you are quite hungry as well. So for the very last time, most speakers have asked you to be upstanding. Could we please be upstanding one last time before we actually all exit the auditorium? And this is just from me to you. Can we all give ourselves a big round of applause for listening, for comments, and for your patience? I really thank all of you on behalf of the Global Landscapes Forum. If any of you feel motivated, as I said earlier on, and inspired, there is a pavilion on the outside of the foyer. Please register if you want to be part of the speaker panelists for next year. And again, on behalf of the entire team, from the crew, technical crew, please give them a round of applause. The main conference center auditorium, of course, our traditional leaders that I've represented here by the Nime and Name. Thank you so very much for being here. Can we please give them a big round of applause? Okay. We would also like to acknowledge the presence of none other than Her Royal Highness Sylvia Naginda, who is the Queen of Buganda. Once again, thank you for being with us here today. Thank you so very much. And representatives of the Kingdom of the Ashanti as well, thank you so very much for being here with us. One more time, my name is Michelle Atto. I've been your hostess and your moderator. It's been such a pleasure and an honor to be part of this monumental change. Thank you so very much. I would like to call on Mr. John Coleman, who would like to give us his last words for this afternoon.
Just one thing, to thank our wonderful, wonderful host here today. She was just spectacular.
Thank you, sir.
Michelle is an actress, an activist, dedicated, has a great foundation. We just can't say enough great things about her, and she was just wonderful. Thank you very, very much.
Oh, wow. That was so unexpected, but thank you so very much. So without further ado, thank you for your time. We'll be coming back here at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Please, thank you, and good afternoon.